I don't make jokes. I don't tell jokes, but I do tell stories and lies. Anyway, this is just a joke. It's not a joke either. It's an account. The story is true. It really did happen. Don't you plan to blow out the candles? It's a miracle that I can fit my cigar in its case. I have almost nothing to lose. Do not feel sad. I couldn't do it if you asked me to get up and do it in this room. On stage, though, I can because the crowd is so great. For 80 years, everyone in America loved George Burns. Comedian. He made a huge amount of money, more than $30 million. His two adopted kids thought they were going to get everything. But in March 1996, Burns did something that no one saw coming. He left his kids without any will at all. Each and every dollar went somewhere else. His family had a lot of questions. Friends say Burns kept some things from everyone. The real reason he left his kids is because of a terrible betrayal that happened years ago. You know, your doctor told you, now, George, you got it. My doctor is dead. George Burns was born on January 20, 1896, in a small flat at 95 Pittsburgh Street on New York's Lower East Side. Nathan Birnbaum was his name. At that time, things were moving quickly and loudly around him. He was born in Galatia, where his parents, Dora and Louis, had fled difficulties in Ruptica. They brought old habits with them to a small new world. He was the ninth of their 12 children. The family was crammed into 3 small rooms, and blankets weren't really keeping them warm. Louis worked as a caner and made just enough money to keep his family living. Doreen cleaned clothes so that her friends could help. A lot of the kids on the Lower East Side shared beds and clothes. A lot of the time, dinner was just potatoes and onions. It felt like a gift to even have bread. Still, George thought of hearing people laugh, telling Yiddish jokes, and living their lives in those rooms. He thought about that joke a lot. In 1904, everything changed. In a flash, his father died when he was 8 years old. The family didn't have any funds or plans B. He had to help out after 5th grade, so school was over for him. He stood on corners and cleaned people's shoes for 5 cents each. He kept going even though it was dirty, cold, and long. He would sing with a kids group called the Imperial Five to make a little extra money sometimes. Their manager stole their money one night. George had. They had nowhere to sleep and learned what it was like to be truly hungry and scared. Still, those nights were like secret training for him. For the rest of his life, they taught him how to be tough and smart on the street. His personality changed as he grew up. His family named him Natty. Because of his shine box, other kids called him Shoes Birnbaum. He made cigars. He had papers for sale. He sneaked into burlesque houses to see comedians make people laugh out of thin air. He wished for that life. He swam across the East River as a risky bet when he was in his early teens. He almost drowned when the river pulled him under. He was scared, but something wild came up in him at that moment. He soon tried out new stage names. George Burns got his start with the Burns Brothers Coal Company and his brother Izzy, who was also named George Birnbaum. He had stolen their coal before to keep his family warm. After that, he tried names like Willie Delight and Captain Betts to trick hiring agents and keep his job. He got the urge to run when he was 14 years old, and he did. He left home in 1910 and joined the Mickey Rooney Stock Company to try to make it as a singer. In a stage in the Midwest, he did his first paid show. But he stopped and forgot. The crowd booed him until pennies started falling on the stage. He was fired right away. He always said that being made fun of was the best thing he ever learned. After that, he sang on ferryboats, in brothels, on street corners, and anywhere else that might pay him a little money when he went through the Midwest. He didn't eat much some days. He didn't get much sleep some nights, but he felt alive and kept going. He was still after the stage when he was 17 years old, in 1913. He got sisters Beatrice and Irene to join him in a music group called the Burning Three. They went to rough vaudeville shows with rough groups. Irene ran away with a sailor out of the blue, leaving George and Beatrice without any money. George begged to take the train home, but it cost him a lot. He got back to New York broke and angry. But he never thought about giving up. He learned how to deal with shady theater owners who wouldn't pay and how to handle the pain of failing without losing his drive during those years. He tried to join the Navy during World War I, but they turned him down because he was too short. Their needs were for bigger men, not someone 5 feet 7 inches. He didn't give up, instead, he found another way. He put on clothes that made him look like a woman named Barbara and sneaked up on groups of musicians on troop ships. It was dangerous. He got away with it even though one mistake could have led to his arrest. He sang for people who missed their houses. Troops while hoping no one would find him. He laughed about it later, but at the time it was just a way to stay alive. Many times, coming up with new ideas saved him. When he joined forces with dancer Elsie Rain in 1916, he thought he had finally found his big break. They put together a dance act and went on tour along the East Coast. But Elsie left him for a richer man, leaving George alone once more. He got a job as a soda jerk on the boardwalk at Coney Island because he was broke and tired. As he worked, he told jokes to customers while they ate ice cream. Some people laughed, and others left. They all taught him how to time things. He learned how to read people and change things at the last minute. In the end, he joked that this job helped his business more than any producer ever had. He was singing alone and going by the name George Burns full-time by 1920. During Prohibition, he worked in speakeasies where raids could happen at any time. He had to hide in a coal bin one night to avoid being caught. He was covered in black soot and felt ashamed when he got out, but he was also surprisingly energized. He learned that he needed someone to help him stay balanced on stage after these nights. His buddy had to be able to beat with him. In 1923, that partner showed up. He hit it off with Gracie Allen at a booking office in Chicago. He had dancer Maggie Healy come in for a test, but he fired her because she forgot about her lines. Later, he ran into Gracie, an Irish-American singer who was 27 years old and whose family act had broken up. The first time they met was easy, but he felt something new about her. She was asked to try out his show. To prepare, George planned to be the funny one while she played it straight. But things changed when they were in front of a crowd. People laughed at how confused Gracie looked. No one could take their eyes off of her because of her voice, timing, or quick responses. George knew right away and changed the act right away. He played the patient watcher who let Gracie shine, and she played the strange character. At the Hill Street Theater in New York, their first show together showed that there was real magic between them. The crowd loved them. A lot of people laughed. The first one, called 6040, taught them what worked and what didn't. George said that between Gracie and the crowd, there was an energy that he could never match. They became contagious in 1924 and had hits with acts like Dizzy and Lamb Chops. They bought their first car with the $50 a week they made. It finally felt like life was getting better. By the end of 1925, George had a bad feeling about being afraid. A different artist was dating. Thanks. He told her she had to make a choice on Christmas Eve. Get married or leave him. Grancy agreed, even though it was risky and a mess. They got married in Cleveland on January 7, 1926. Even though the event was small, it made a big difference. From that point on, their home life and work life became intertwined. A few weeks later, they signed a 6-year deal with RKO that said neither of them could appear alone. It was a deal that would keep them together for decades. The deal said things would be stable, but life brought new problems. Gracie started to pass out during practice. Soon after, doctors found out it was because she had a heart problem that would last her whole life. George had no idea that someone with so much energy could be so weak. In any case, she kept playing. People around her admired her for years as she pushed through pain and tiredness. Her health finally got the best of her in 1958, and it killed her in 1964. But when they were on top, she carried the show with a strength that no one in the crowd could see. They were George Burns and Gracie Allen. It was 1927, and they walked onto the stage of the Palace Theater in New York. One of the best places for a comedy act to go was the Palace. When they were the main act there and made $1.50 a week, it felt like the dream they had been chasing for years was finally coming true. People really liked them, especially Gracie's weird reasoning that never made sense but always hit the mark. Some people said they looked like the Marx Brothers, and the laughing from those nights followed them everywhere they went. From the outside, it looked like they rose quickly, but there were years when they suffered, switched roles, and found that Gracie was the real spark who lit up the room with a stream of unclear questions. The palace made sure they stayed at the top of their game and pushed them to the next level of their rise. In 1929, after 2 years, they went across the ocean for a 15-week BBC radio tour. The process was meant to go smoothly, but as soon as they got there, British Customs took George's cigars. He hadn't smoked since he was 10 years old, and now he didn't have anything to calm him down. So, he made jokes out of his anger. How they felt about withdrawal and worked it into their act. The people in Britain really liked it. Their habits spread across a continent that didn't know them but accepted them by giving them lots of radio time and high pay. They became famous all over the world on that trip, which also taught them how to use different rules, cultures, and habits to make comedy. In 1931, they were big enough for the Ziegfeld Follies, which was one of the most famous shows in the United States. They were on stage with Eddie Kaner and other artists. But for Gracie, the trip was too much. Since she didn't like flying, train rides between towns turned into long trips. She hurt her ankle in the middle of a show one time. Even though she was in a lot of pain, George picked her up and carried her on stage. The crowd didn't notice that she kept pretending. After them, it turned into another story. There were people in every seat, which shows how close they are and how much they value the crowd. At about the same time, George was doing something that not many stars would do. He used their vaudeville wages to buy foreclosed homes in secret during the 1929 crash, while others spent their money on clothes and fancy hotel rooms. While the country was in a panic, he was buying homes for very little money. That money helped them stay in business when the Great Depression hit and houses had to close. Many artists didn't have anything, but George knew what was going to happen and made sure they wouldn't drown when the business crashed. Their first movie came out in 1930. With Paramount shorts that looked like lamb chops. But there was a twist in even that moment. At one showing, the projector blew up, burning George's eyebrows and filling the room with smoke because the reel got stuck. He didn't run away, instead, he made jokes about the blast as if it were part of the plan for the accident. The executives stood there in shock. They had just seen someone quickly go from being scared to laughing. People remember that quick thought, which opened more doors than any written line could. On NBC's George Burns and Gracie Allen show, which began on February 15, 1932, they got their big break in radio. Each show was 15 minutes long and was based on Gracie's crazy misunderstandings that made sense in the end. By the middle of the 1930s, almost 40 million people watched every week. At the time, that number was almost unbelievable, since most shows didn't even get half that many people. The style was loose, made up on the spot most of the time, and full of shocks. Real laughing, real confusion, and real sparks between them could be heard. From 19, the ratings went up. 3 to 31. 3 in a year, which is a rise of over 60%. They proved that radio could work without strict plots. It only took two people who knew how to play off of each other, were honest, and had balance. After that, in 1933, Gracie ran a fake campaign for president.